Sean sat in his car as he was thinking about how his life had changed over the last 24 hours. How long has it been since I last got any sleep? Sean asked himself. He had driven his car down an old dirt road about a mile from the main road. Ahead of him was a deep trench dug into the road designed to be a barrier that stopped any further ability to travel. Old Man Turpin dug that using his backhoe several months ago. That road went on for almost another half-mile to the remains of his old childhood home, and Sean wanted to go there. Sean sat there and thought about just staying put. He opened a beer and took a drink. He then looked down at the Sig Sauer P320 in the seat beside him. Sean grabbed the firearm and the rest of the six-pack he bought and walked from his car to the creek about 50 feet away. He put the firearm inside his belt and sat down on a stump as he watched the water flow by him. As he sat there, his mind went to how his father had told him that area was crawling with copperheads, and thought how wonderful it would be if one just bit him right then and there. Then Sean started to cry, and as he did, he threw the now empty beer bottle into the creek. "Screw Old Man Turpin," Sean screamed. Then Sean opened another beer and started drinking it. As he did, his eyes caught sight of a deer biting some plums off a plum tree at least 300 feet away across the creek. Just eating with no thoughts in the world, Sean thought as he watched the deer. Sean grabbed the firearm and looked at it. He wondered when his body would be found. He thought about leaving a note but decided that he was not going to do so. Just as Sean was about to pull the trigger, he heard another car coming toward him. He thought, please don't let that be Mr. Turpin, Sean thought. Several minutes later, he saw the markings of a county sheriff's department car. Sean sighed as he stood up and placed the firearm back in his belt. Deputy Sheriff David Carson had been told earlier that shift by his supervisor to drive down the old Turpin Road and make sure nobody is out there making babies. Old Man Turpin was getting tired of picking up used rubbers and trash. Because of easements, he was not able to put up a gate at the main highway and had been raising hell with the sheriff about doing something about running the kids off. However, Deputy Carson saw the firearm and every fiber of his being started screaming something was horribly wrong. He picked up the mic and said, "This is Unit 20," and using a radio code told dispatch he was out with a possible mental case on Turpin Road. Sergeant Ted Hill was about a mile away, and he got on his radio and said he was on the way to Carson's location. That about that same time Molly was sitting in her mother's kitchen and wanted to cry some more, but she was cried out by that time. Why was I so stupid? Molly asked herself as her mind went back to the afternoon before. Sean was not answering his phone and his parents had no idea where he was. Molly just looked at her 2-year-old daughter Janet and could see she was looking at her. Oh gosh, I really messed up. Molly's mind went back to the last time she saw Sean. He was looking at her, and from the look on his face all the will to live had left him. Molly had taken Janet to her mother's home for a few hours so she could go see Chuck. She told her mom she was going across the state line for a while to shop, and Janet had been cranky and asked her mom to watch her. What Molly did not know was Sean was working in another house almost across the street from Chuck's house and was not in the company work van. He was in his boss's pickup. Sean was standing on the porch when he saw Molly pull into the driveway. When he came out, Molly started kissing Chuck. "What the hell?" Sean said out loud as he watched them enter the house and could see Chuck's hands all over Molly's butt. Sean was an electrician. He was there to install a new 200-amp main. He was finished and was standing on the porch waiting for the customer to write a check. When the customer came out, he noticed Sean looking across the street. "Oh, that's Chuck's girlfriend," the customer said. "She comes here a lot during the day because Chuck works nights." "How long has she been doing that?" asked Sean. The customer looked at Sean and started to wonder what had piqued Sean's curiosity. Sean saw the customer get uncomfortable and said, "I am wondering because that girl is my wife Molly," Sean said. "Look, I don't want any trouble, this is a nice quiet neighborhood, take your marital trouble away from here," the customer said. Sean loaded up the pickup and drove across the road and parked in Chuck's driveway behind Molly's car. Then started honking the horn. As he did so, the customer called 911 and asked for a cop. Chuck was already in bed with Molly when he started to hear the horn. He stopped and got out of bed. When he opened the door, the man honking got out and said, "I need to see Molly." Molly heard Sean's voice and almost passed out. Molly quickly put her clothes back on and walked outside. By this time Chuck was wondering who that was. "It's my husband Sean," Molly said. "How could you do this?" Sean said. Sean's body just went limp as he walked back to the pickup, got in and left. Molly went back inside and grabbed her purse, and as she did, she saw Chuck standing there in a state of shock. "How did your husband know you were here?" he asked. "I have no idea," Molly said. Then she left to chase Sean and attempt to save her marriage. On the way Molly was crying and knew she had messed up bad, but by the time she got out on the highway she could no longer see the pickup. So, she headed for the offices and warehouse where Sean worked. When she got there, Sean's boss met her at the door. He did not look happy to see her. "What the fuck did you do, Molly?" he said in an extremely indignant tone. "Sean just called me and said he caught you fucking another man. While I care more about Sean, I am also snowed under with work and just lost my right-hand man, you ignorant slut," he said. "Get the hell of my property or I will have you arrested for trespassing," he said. Molly, still bawling, got in her car and went to her mother's house. Sean pulled up into his workplace about an hour later. He got out of the pickup not remembering how he got there. His boss ran out to greet him and gave him a bear hug, telling him, "Sean, old buddy, things will turn out okay." Ian attempted to smile, but all he could do was hand his boss the keys and got in his car. He just got out on the road, his mind just wondering what was happening. About 4 that morning Sean decided to get his firearm and end it all. So, he drove home, opened his gun safe, took out a box of ammo and left. As he did, he noticed a photo of Molly holding Janet, taken the day they brought her home from the hospital 2 years ago. Sean stood there and started crying again. Molly was not at home, so he guessed she was getting piped by Chuck. Sean just walked out, leaving the front door wide open. When Deputy Carson stopped, he got out of the car and said, "Son, I know you are armed, please toss the gun on the ground and let's talk." Sean followed the deputy's instructions and he started to hear another patrol car drive up. When the other officer got there, he saw David standing next to another man. He radioed he had arrived and all was secure. Then he got out and walked up to the men. "Sean, this is my supervisor Ted Hill." "Ted, this is Sean," Deputy Carson said. "Sean, what are you doing out here?" Ted said. "I can see by your eyes you have been drinking and are in no condition to drive." Sean just looked at both men and said, "I caught my wife Molly with another man yesterday," Sean said. The two officers looked at each other and Ted told David, "I am going to call for a tow. I will wait here for the tow truck, and you need to get Sean to the hospital. I will take possession of the gun." As the patrol car pulled up to the ER entrance, Deputy Carson helped Sean out of the car and into the ER intake area. Sean was not handcuffed, and he just had a seat while the deputy spoke to a nurse. Within minutes Sean was sitting in an exam room. Molly and her mother had a loud fight that morning. Her mother told her to let Janet stay there. Molly was in no mood to fight with her mother any longer and just wanted to go home and hope Sean was there. When she pulled up in the driveway, she noticed Sean's car was not in the driveway and her front door was open. She did not dare enter the house. She got out her cell phone and dialed 911 and asked for help. Deputy Ronald Baskins responded and walked through the house. Molly also noticed Sean's gun safe was open. But his rifles were still in it along with most of the ammo. She could not find Sean's handgun though and told the deputy a gun was missing. Molly shook as she thought about why Sean took the gun. She called Chuck and woke him. "Good, you are okay, Chuck. Sean has his gun and I suggest you keep a close watch out until we can find him. I will call you when I do." Then Molly hung up the phone. Deputy Baskins put out a call about Sean and the gun. When Ted Hill heard it, said, "The subject is in custody and the firearm is secure with me." Molly heard the in custody part and asked Deputy Baskins where he was. He made a radio call to Ted Hill, and he said, "He is at the hospital." When Molly heard that, she got dizzy. "I must go see my husband." Molly locked and secured the house and thanked Deputy Baskins. After Deputy Carson finished getting Sean admitted, he waited on the ER doctor to fill out the Georgia Form 1013 that authorizes the Sheriff's Department to take Sean to a state mental health facility for up to 48 hours of observation. Because this form does not require a physician to be a mental health specialist, any licensed physician can sign one. Dr. Royce was sitting at the main ER desk doing some paperwork, being thankful their case load that day was light. So far today, 2 broken bones and a heart attack that had been transferred to Athens. He was sipping some coffee when the nurse said, "Dr. Royce, we have a request for a 1013 by the Sheriff's Department. The patient is in 4. "Okay, Watson, I will be right there." Royce walked toward treatment room 4 and saw a crying Sean sitting on a chair. He stopped and looked outside and could not see the deputy. Okay, he thought, I guess he is not dangerous, as he looked at the chart. "Hello Sean, my name is Dr. Royce and I understand you are having some family issues today," Royce said as he pulled up a chair and got in front of Sean. Royce explained what Form 1013 was and asked him if he felt that he was a danger to himself or others. Sean said, "Doc, this morning I was planning to shoot myself, but to be honest, all I want to do right now is sleep." Royce did not want to 1013 this man if there was any chance he could snap out of this mood. Royce got up and said to Sean, "I will be back in about 10 minutes. Royce then walked to the waiting area and found Deputy Carson. He said, "I don't think anything as drastic as a 1013 is needed right now. Sean is tired and sleep deprived. I am going to give him a sedative and admit him until the morning and speak to our staff psychologist about this case. Your actions by being in here and not in the hallway tells me even you think he is not dangerous. I don't think we will be needing you any longer, deputy, but thank you for bringing him in." David Carson got up and spoke to his radio. He was finished that the doctor was not sending the subject to the state hospital. "Okay, Unit 20. David went back to his patrol. Dr. Royce told the nurse to call upstairs to get a bed ready and ordered Trazodone 150. Then he walked back to the exam room to tell Sean he was staying there that night. He watched the ER nurse give Sean the pill and sit and wrote the admission orders. About 20 minutes later he watched Sean being taken to the floor by a wheelchair. He then went on to his next case. Molly parked and ran into the ER almost at the same time Sean was being taken to the floor. She was still crying when she asked about her husband Sean. The clerk told her Sean was safe, he had been medicated and she needed to get some insurance information from her. The clerk promised it would only be a few minutes and she could finish most of the admission process up on the floor. Once Molly was told where Sean was, she ran there. Molly entered Sean's room at almost the same time Sean was changing into a hospital gown. She was crying and reached out to touch Sean's face. Sean looked at Molly and said, "Don't you touch me, Molly, you lost that right when you let that man have you." "Please don't say that, Sean," Molly begged. When the nurse came back into the room, Sean told her he did not want any visitors and that also included his wife Molly. The nurse then told Molly she needed to leave not only the room but the floor. Molly's shoulders dropped as she walked back out to her car. When she got home there was a note on her door to call Ted Hill and a number provided. He wanted to collect all the firearms and ammo in the gun safe and keep them in a special locker the sheriff's department had. Molly said Sean was in the hospital and Sean's dad was coming by to get them and was wanting the handgun you took from Sean. "Fair enough, Molly, your father-in-law can have those weapons, but the handgun stays with me for now," Ted told her. "Okay," Molly said. After waking up and eating a much-needed meal, Sean got out of bed and sat down in one of the chairs. He was sitting there thinking about his life when his folks entered the room. Sean got up and sat on his bed and his mother walked over to him and hugged him. His father asked him how he was. Sean said, "I am doing okay, Dad. Son, I got all your rifles and the ammo out of your gun safe. The sheriff did not want them there, at least for now." "That's okay, Dad. Son, the sheriff did get your pistol." I am going to speak to my attorney to see about getting it back. You committed no crime, and I am sure you will get your groove back. His dad smiled as he hit him softly on the shoulder. Son, Molly and I spoke for a while last night. She told me she was done with that Chuck guy and wants to come see you. Sean's mom said to him. Mom. Molly is dead to me now. Sean's dad told his mom that could wait. About that time a doctor came in and wanted to speak to Sean. He also welcomed his folks to stay. They talked about things and the doctor asked Sean how he felt about going home. Sean told him his dad had all the weapons and right now he just wants to start working on his divorce. Sean went to stay with his folks for a while. Sean knew he had to deal with Molly, and he decided to have her meet him in the parking lot of the local Dairy Queen the day he got his car from the towing company. They sat out on an outside table and discussed the breakdown of their marriage. Sean told Molly he was going to go back on active duty in the Navy. Molly asked him to wait and give her another chance. But Sean told her to do so would only be spinning their wheels. Sean told a now crying Molly the best way she could show she cares about Sean would be to not fight their divorce. If she agreed not to fight the divorce, he would not use adultery as grounds and her affair with Chuck would not become common knowledge. Molly, you know this is for the best, Sean said. Molly just walked back to her car and returned home. About 6 months later Sean was on his way to Mayport to report to his new ship. His father was able to get the firearm back and he had all the weapons. His divorce would be final soon and he was eager to get on with his life. Molly did not fight the divorce and even agreed to give Sean liberal visitation with Janet while he was away serving in the Navy and a promise to share 50-50 custody when he got out. Almost 8 years later while shopping in Athens, Georgia, Molly and her new husband ran into Sean with his wife. Molly ran up to hug Sean and this time Sean let her. The four of them found a quiet place and they talked about the events over the past few years in their hometown. As Molly and her husband started to walk away, Sean noticed a backward glance Molly made back to him. Sean smiled and turned back to Candy and they walked away. Chuck was messing around with another married woman at a bar across the line in South Carolina several years later and the husband shot him. Chuck was left wearing a colostomy bag for a long time after he got out of the hospital. Sean looked at his wife Candy and thought, I hit the lottery with Candy. Sean smiled as he took a large bite out of his hamburger.